was a completely different game premise. It was that every cast member was brought into the circle as another cast member. I had a better idea. I think that we were in the middle of very important people, and I was watching the cast have the time of their lives playing these outlandish characters. Oh, this would be so much more fun if they were allowed to express their creativity a bit more. The idea changed to everybody catfishing as whomever they wanted to.
Years ago, we were talking about doing it on our stage in soundproof individual working pods.
But if they had to stay in a tiny little booth the entire time that was like just the size of their person, that would be so claustrophobic.
The practical answer was to do it on location, and they add a whole new layer that we have not yet done on Game Changer.
We rented out an entire hotel floor. We moved the entire company to this off-site location.
It's a luxury to shoot at the studio. And when you shoot somewhere off location, it can become very stressful.
It's inevitable as the game goes on and as we continue to back ourselves into a corner creatively where there's a lot we've done already, that escaping the studio becomes necessary in order for the show to feel original. That being said, I don't plan to ever abandon the studio entirely. I think at this point, the studio also feels like a character in the show.
So I'm going to ask you to create a larger-than-life character to play throughout the day.
The fun here was watching the different expressions of these creativity.
When we got into the room to start doing our interviews with our players and let them in on what was going on, it was just so much fun to watch them in real time come up with these characters.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions on camera, like name, pronouns, profession, location, that sort of thing.
I can't tell if this is the dumbest mistake I've ever made, but I do think it's very funny if everybody else is picking, like, you know, I'm an olive oil salesman, or whatever, you know.
First thought is like a bro-y thing, but then that felt like, I think someone can possibly guess that's where my mind goes.
Sure. If I try to play a character that is Allie Beardsley, people know that I like Beardsley's deal too much. Yes. Every Allie Beardsley reference is from 2003.
Oh my God. Okay, so I think that the landlord is not close to who Jessica is. I've never punched anyone. I've never been in a fight.
Maybe I'll be like a really old person or whatever. Maybe I don't want to overlap with a girl on D20.
Musical
theater Sylvester Cross, it would be. That would probably be that.
I really liked the idea of there being one cast member among the cast members that came from the outside world. Who has a voice that's so distinct that you might recognize it on paper? Eric was one of the first people I reached out to on Instagram, and from the outset was just so clearly the wild card.
It was a big deal for me that Eric Wareheim would be interested in participating in this beautiful show.
As expected, his choices were as absurd as you would hope that they would be.
I do have the power to put all the other snakes to sleep, and I can control Medusa for about 45 minutes a day.
It was something mythical, which we didn't have already. And then he talked almost exclusively about taco trucks, which is like, if the cast had thought to themselves for a moment, what major comedian do I know who's obsessed with food, he would have been totally outing himself.
Initially, we talked about doing like some Game Changer art on the wall, and I really wanted the rooms to be places that like had their own presence as almost like a character in the show.
Once I arrived on set and saw what the art team had done, I mean, visually just unbelievable.
We had to find a bunch of props that fit the world of all these different rooms. There's like the fairy room where a picture frame that's covered in moss that we did, and then there's like medieval room that has like a lot of bones, and the games that we put on their little coffee tables too are very specific to the player that will be in those rooms, and then also to the overall aesthetic of the rooms.
I asked Sam if he would please let me do a photo shoot with him. We dressed him up in some sort of garb that would match the theme of each room. We had a really wonderful set decorator for this episode named Day Hernandez, who came on and really knocked it out of the park with every weird oddball request I had.
When you think about the level of logistics and planning to do some of the things that we wanted to do, those are not easy tasks for a production team.
It was actually really